Human beings have always searched for ways to change how they feel, to feel more awake, more relaxed, more confident, more connected. Throughout history, people discovered chemicals capable of altering the human brain in powerful ways. Some became part of everyday culture. Others became dangerous addictions. But whether legal or illegal, natural or synthetic, every drug changes the same thing: the brain's chemistry. Some substances stimulate the nervous system and flood the brain with energy. Others slow everything down and create calm. Some distort reality completely, changing the way people see, hear, think, and feel. But nearly all drugs follow the same cycle: an onset, a peak, a calm down. And with repeated use, the brain slowly adapts until normal life no longer feels normal without the substance. Caffeine is the most widely consumed psychoactive drug on Earth. Billions of people use it every single day through coffee, tea, soda, pre-workouts, and energy drinks. For many people, caffeine is more than a beverage. It becomes part of identity and routine. The morning doesn't begin until the first sip hits. Once consumed, caffeine quickly enters the bloodstream and travels directly to the brain. There, it blocks a chemical called adenosine, the neurotransmitter responsible for making the brain feel tired. Normally, adenosine builds throughout the day, increasing pressure for sleep and rest. But caffeine interrupts that signal. The exhaustion is still there. The brain simply stops noticing it for a while. Within minutes, neurons begin firing faster. Adrenaline rises, heart rate increases slightly, focus sharpens, thoughts feel quicker and clearer. Motivation suddenly returns. During the peak, many people feel productive, energetic, and mentally alert. Work becomes easier. Conversations feel smoother. Fatigue seems to disappear completely. But caffeine never removes tiredness. It only delays it. As the body breaks caffeine down, adenosine floods back into the brain all at once. The crash begins, focus weakens, irritation increases, energy drops sharply. Many people respond by consuming even more caffeine, restarting the cycle again. Over time, the brain adapts to regular caffeine intake by reducing natural alertness and increasing tolerance. The same amount stops feeling effective. Larger doses become necessary just to reach the same level of focus and energy. And when someone suddenly stops using caffeine, withdrawal symptoms appear quickly: headaches, fatigue, brain fog, irritability, and low motivation. What feels like a harmless daily habit is still a chemical dependence hidden inside modern culture. Nicotine is another stimulant, but it works much faster and more aggressively than caffeine. Found in cigarettes, cigars, tobacco products, and modern vaping devices, nicotine reaches the brain within seconds after inhalation. Few substances create dependence as rapidly. The moment nicotine enters the bloodstream, it activates receptors linked to dopamine release. Dopamine is the brain chemical associated with pleasure, reward, and reinforcement. Stress immediately begins fading. Focus sharpens, anxiety temporarily weakens. Many users describe the sensation as calming, even though nicotine is technically stimulating the nervous system. At first, nicotine feels controlled and manageable. A small boost in mood, a moment of relief, a break from stress, but the effect fades quickly. Dopamine levels drop, restlessness returns. Irritation rises, cravings appear again, sometimes within minutes. This creates one of the most powerful addiction loops in existence. Each puff briefly removes the discomfort caused by the previous puff wearing off. Over time, the brain learns to associate nicotine with emotional stability itself. Without it, users may feel anxious, distracted, or emotionally flat. Physically, nicotine damages blood vessels, increases heart strain, and exposes the lungs to toxic chemicals when smoked. But the psychological dependence can become even stronger than the physical damage. Eventually, many users no longer smoke for pleasure. They smoke simply to feel normal. Alcohol works differently from stimulants like caffeine and nicotine. Alcohol is a depressant, meaning it slows communication inside the brain and nervous system. It is deeply connected to human culture, celebration, social bonding, and escape. Across the world, alcohol is used to relax, socialize, cope with stress, and temporarily forget problems. Once alcohol enters the bloodstream, it begins interfering with neurotransmitters responsible for judgment, coordination, emotional control, and decision-making. At low doses, this feels pleasant. Anxiety weakens, confidence rises, conversations become easier, social fear fades away, As intoxication increases, inhibitions disappear further. Emotions become amplified. People talk louder, laugh harder, and take bigger risks. The brain becomes slower while convincing the person they are still functioning normally. That false sense of control is part of what makes alcohol dangerous. As blood alcohol levels continue rising, coordination worsens. Balance weakens. Speech slurs. Memory formation begins breaking down. Blackouts can occur where the brain stops recording events entirely, even while the person remains conscious and active. Eventually, the calm-down arrives. Dehydration, inflammation, and disrupted brain chemistry create exhaustion, nausea, headaches, sensitivity to light, and mental fog. Repeated drinking slowly changes how the brain manages stress and relaxation. Over time, some people stop drinking for enjoyment and start drinking simply to escape discomfort or emotional pain. Cannabis affects perception, emotion, and awareness in ways very different from alcohol or stimulants. The main psychoactive compound in cannabis is THC, which interacts with the brain's endocannabinoid system, a network involved in mood, memory, appetite, stress, and perception. When THC reaches the brain, sensory experiences begin changing. Time may feel slower. Music sounds richer. Colors appear stronger. Thoughts become unusually detailed or emotional. Many users experience relaxation, laughter, and calm. Others experience paranoia, racing thoughts, or anxiety. At moderate doses, cannabis can create a dreamlike mental state where ordinary experiences feel unusually meaningful or entertaining. Creativity may feel enhanced. Internal thoughts become louder and more immersive. But higher doses can also distort thinking and emotional control, especially in stressful environments. As the high fades, tiredness and mental fog often appear. Heavy
Low
long-term
motivation
use may
makes it
reduce
hard to start
motivation,
tasks.
weaken short-term
Memory issues cause
and
frequent
increase dependence
forgetfulness.
on
They
artificial
depend on it for
relaxation.
artificial
While
relaxation.
cannabis is often
This
viewed
shows
as
emotional
harmless
dependence.
compared to harder drugs, frequent use still changes the brain's reward systems over time. Cocaine is one of the most intense stimulants ever created. Derived from coca leaves, cocaine works by blocking the brain's ability to reabsorb dopamine, instead of normal reward signals fading naturally. Dopamine accumulates rapidly, creating an overwhelming flood of pleasure and stimulation. The onset happens almost instantly. Confidence explodes, energy surges through the body, the heart races. Thoughts feel fast and brilliant. Users often feel socially
This is
powerful,
my world
mentally
now!
sharp, and
You
emotionally
can't keep up with this
unstoppable.
energy!
But cocaine's
I'm on
high
top of
burns
the world!
intensely and briefly.
Feel that power?
Within a short period,
It's unstoppable!
dopamine levels crash hard. Anxiety, exhaustion, depression, and cravings quickly replace the euphoria. Many users immediately seek another dose to escape the crash, creating binge patterns that rapidly increase addiction risk. Repeated cocaine use damages blood vessels, increases heart attack risk, weakens emotional stability, and deeply alters the brain's reward circuitry. Over time, natural pleasure becomes harder to experience without the drug. MDMA combines stimulant and hallucinogenic effects into a powerful emotional experience. Often used at parties, festivals, and clubs, MDMA massively increases serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin levels in the brain. During the onset, users feel warmth spreading through the body. Music feels emotionally powerful. Touch becomes intensely pleasurable. Empathy increases dramatically. Many people feel emotionally connected to strangers, friends, and the world around them. At its peak, MDMA can create feelings of extreme happiness, openness, and emotional intimacy. Fear and insecurity temporarily disappear. For several hours, reality feels beautiful, safe, and emotionally overwhelming, but the brain pays heavily afterward. MDMA rapidly drains serotonin reserves, leaving the brain chemically exhausted. As the drug wears off, sadness, emptiness, emotional numbness, and fatigue can appear. Frequent use may damage serotonin systems long-term, making natural happiness harder to maintain. LSD radically alters perception and consciousness itself. Measured in microscopic doses, LSD binds strongly to serotonin receptors involved in mood, sensory processing, and awareness. As the experience begins, reality slowly becomes unstable. Colors intensify, patterns move, sounds feel physical. Time stretches and loses structure. Thoughts become deeply abstract and emotional. At higher doses, users may experience ego dissolution, a state where the normal sense of self temporarily disappears. The boundary between thoughts, emotions, and surroundings begins collapsing. Some describe it as spiritual enlightenment, Others experience terror, confusion, or psychological breakdown. Unlike many drugs, LSD is not physically addictive, but its psychological intensity makes it unpredictable. A positive environment can create deeply meaningful experiences. A negative environment can produce panic, paranoia, and long-lasting emotional distress. Ketamine creates an entirely different altered state by disconnecting awareness from sensory reality. Originally developed as a medical anesthetic, ketamine blocks glutamate activity in the brain, disrupting perception and body awareness. As the drug takes effect, users often feel detached from their surroundings. Movement becomes strange and distant. Reality feels dreamlike and fragmented. At high doses, users may enter the K-hole, where awareness separates almost completely from physical sensation and identity. Some users describe floating outside their body or observing reality from a distance. Others experience confusion, fear, or emotional emptiness. Heavy ketamine use may damage memory, emotional processing, and bladder function while creating psychological detachment from normal life. Opioids are among the most dangerous and addictive substances known to humanity. Drugs like heroin, morphine, fentanyl, and oxycodone attach directly to opioid receptors responsible for pain, pleasure, and survival-related reward systems. The onset creates overwhelming comfort and relief. Physical pain fades. Emotional stress disappears. Warmth spreads through the body. Users often describe the feeling as complete peace and safety. At higher doses, breathing slows dangerously. Awareness drifts toward unconsciousness. The line between euphoria and overdose becomes extremely thin. Fentanyl in particular is so powerful that tiny amounts can stop breathing entirely. What makes opioids especially destructive is how deeply they hijack the brain's survival system. Over time, the brain begins treating the drug as necessary for survival itself. Withdrawal becomes physically and emotionally brutal. Muscle pain, nausea, sweating, insomnia, panic, and unbearable cravings. Methamphetamine pushes the brain into a state of extreme stimulation. Massive dopamine and adrenaline release create explosive energy, confidence, focus, and wakefulness. Users may stay awake for days while feeling invincible. At first, meth can create obsessive productivity and intense motivation. Thoughts race rapidly, speech becomes fast, confidence grows unnaturally high, but the brain burns through enormous amounts of dopamine during the process. When the crash arrives, it can last for days. Depression, exhaustion, paranoia, hallucinations, and emotional emptiness often follow. Long-term meth use severely damages memory, emotional control, sleep cycles, and physical appearance. Psilocybin mushrooms create hallucinogenic experiences that many people describe as emotional or spiritual, rather than purely
Psilocybin is
recreational.
converted into psilocin,
Once
which then
converted
binds
into
to serotonin
psilocin
receptors,
inside the
altering the
body,
brain's
the
signaling
compound
pathways.
alters serotonin
This disruption affects
signaling
mood,
and sensory
perception, and
processes.
cognition,
Users
illustrating
may
the compound's
experience
psychedelic
heightened
effects.
awareness, emotional introspection, visual distortions, and intense connection to thoughts, memories, nature, or identity. Positive experiences may create feelings of peace, gratitude, or personal insight. Negative experiences may create fear, confusion, or panic. Psilocybin is not considered physically addictive, but psychologically intense experiences can leave lasting emotional effects depending on mindset and environment. Benzodiazepines, commonly called benzos, are prescription sedatives used to treat anxiety, panic attacks, and insomnia. They work by increasing GABA activity, slowing brain function, and creating calm. At first, the effect feels relieving and peaceful. Anxiety fades, muscles relax, thoughts quiet down. But repeated use quickly builds tolerance. The brain begins struggling to regulate stress naturally without the drug. Dependence on benzodiazepines can become extremely dangerous because withdrawal may trigger panic attacks, tremors, seizures, and severe nervous system instability. What begins as medical relief can slowly become chemical dependence. Every drug changes the brain in a different way. Some create stimulation, some create sedation, some distort reality entirely. But all of them interfere with the systems responsible for emotion, reward, stress, memory, and perception. The human brain constantly adapts to whatever it experiences repeatedly, and when chemicals repeatedly force pleasure, calm, confidence, or escape, the brain slowly stops producing those feelings naturally. That is the hidden danger behind addiction. Not simply the substance itself, but the gradual transformation of the mind. A process where temporary relief slowly becomes emotional dependence, and eventually, survival itself feels tied to a chemical.